Hi guys, I'm Christy. I'm here to show you behind the scenes of an author's life. This week, we'll be going through how to structure your scenes. What is a scene? A scene can be defined by one continuous action in a location. Well, action and the locations are not the main things that define a scene. Each scene in a story has a plot point to cover, like learning a secret ingredient in a recipe lost for hundreds of years. You can also see it as a mini story within a story. When does a scene change? Scenes can change through different methods within a novel. The most common ones are time difference and location change. These are not the only ones. The others are when the point of view changes, the action change, like from walking to a fight match. When a new character comes in, for example, two friends are chatting in a coffee shop and a third friend comes in, or when one of the friends has to leave. Another scene change trigger is when a storyline changes. This can be when someone reads a diary entries and the reader ends up reading the past of the person writing the diary, or when we follow the different person at the same time as the previous scene. One scene change trigger that almost no one thinks of is when the goal changes. The character has one goal in a scene, and if the goal changes, so does the scene. What is in a scene? A story can be a short or a mini version of a story. Within each scene, a character has a want and a need. This is a lot smaller than within the story. For instance, if the main plot of your novel is that your main character must win a challenge, and one of the things your character have to do is to find a book in a library to help, in the scene your character need to find that one book related to the challenge. But once you find a book not related to the challenge, but is one of your character's hobbies, the situation is that your character can only choose one book to borrow from the library. What must your character do now? This is the conflict within the scene. What is at stake if your character goes with the book he or she wants to borrow instead of the book he or she needs to borrow? Fail the challenge. Within this small scenario, you can find some of the elements you need to think about when writing a scene. Where to start a scene? If I focus on the goal within a scene, it is not just when the new goal is created, when a scene changes. The previous scene might have ended on what is the new goal for your character to focus on. But we do not want to read all about your character doing all the prep work for going after that goal. This could be we find out that there is an invasion in one city. We do not want to find out how your character is mentally puzzled about this, and when your character starts to make a plan. If the planning part is not what we want to read, we want to know about the execution of the plan. Unless planning for the new goal is important to the plot. The basic rule is to start late in a scene, where to end a scene. In a scene when the goal of the scene is accomplished, we do not want to read about how your character are feeling and reacting to accomplishing the goal. We do not want to know what the aftermath of the accomplishing that goal. One of the easiest way to explain this is with a life or death scene. What will happen if your character is part of a group of 5 friends that went on a camping trip in the forest? Something happens and everyone must escape from being killed. The only one that managed to get away is your main character. We do not want to read the emotional aftermath from those that did die in the forest. The ideal place in this scene to end will be where your main character reaches the safety and escape with his or her life. The next scene can be learning more about why the characters died, or the investigation into the deaths of the other 4 characters. The basic rule for ending your scene will be to end it early. Elements to think about when writing a scene. These elements will help with improving the scene to the point that the reader would like to read the novel. There are 3 main key things to write in a scene: the physical aspect of a scene, the emotional aspect of a scene, and the dialogue of the scene. There are 4 things under the physical aspect of a scene: the setting, your characters, actions, and what your characters are doing. There are 4 things under the emotional aspect of your scene: the goal, the motivation, the conflict, and the change. The setting. The reader needs to be able to quickly figure out when and where the scene is taking place. This is the time and the location in the scene. The characters. Your main character interacts with other people. Who are they? Action. What is happening within the scene? This is also known as the event that happens in the scene. What are your characters doing? The exact actions the characters are doing in the scene. You cannot have your characters doing nothing. They are sitting, standing, or they would be walking. The goal. What is the goal of the scene? Or what is the goal your character have for the scene? The motivation. What is the reason for the goal? The conflict. What is standing in your character's way to achieving the goal? The change. What is different from the beginning of the scene and to the end of the scene? Dialogue. This is the conversation the characters are having on a page. Different types of scenes. I do not understand why this is important when it comes to how to write a certain type of scene, like death scenes, fighting scenes, flirting scenes, or traveling scenes. These types of scenes are the category each scene falls under. Every category has some element to add. It stays the same in a way for all of the types of scene. Every scene has a goal. Every scene has conflict. Different plotting methods in a scene. One option is goals, motivation, and stakes. Second option, beginning, middle, and end. Third option, save the cat, writes a novel. Fourth option, write an experiment. Goals, motivations, and stakes. Each scene, a character has a small goal to achieve, like taking out a book, taking out a library book. Each scene, there is a reason why the character wants to achieve the goal, like saving a baby kitten. So the goal can be something like getting a book on taking care of a kitten. Each scene, there is stakes if the goal is not achieved. For the kitten example, the kitten could die if your character the kitten could die and your character might not be able to get over the heartbreak of the kitten's dying. Beginning, middle, and end. We have heard the sentence so many times. A scene has a beginning, middle, and end. What does that actually mean? Let's start with the beginning. We need to learn how we are following in the scene, and we need to have some sort of idea of what will happen in the scene. Don't forget the most important part, where you start your scene. The middle part of a scene is easy. This is where you have the most of your scene, the content of your scene. You will find out what your character is doing in the scene. The end. The ending of the scene is simple, but how you end your scene, that's more of how you wrap up the scene. Save the cat. If you ask me in the beginning of my journey in learning Save the Cat, I would told you it's only for writing a novel, not individual scene. Now here we are. It is when I realized that if you handle a scene as a 800 to 1500 word story, this method of planning your scene will work. The one thing to remember is that the scene version is not as intense as the novel planning. Setup. You will see how your character is before the problem shows up. Catalyst. An obstacle appears that stands between your character and his or her goals. Debate. Your character finds two choices. Your character will end up choosing the easier option. Fun and games. As the scene goes on, we see how the easier option plays out. Midpoint. We find out that your character made the wrong choice. Bad guys close the scene. Your character must now make the right choice. With the wrong choice made, there are unknown results. All is lost. The result of making the wrong choice is showing up. Dark Night of the Soul. Your character suffers from the result of making the wrong choice. Finale. Your character makes the right choice and finds a way to succeed. Write experiment. Similar to Save the Cat, you can tweak the sections in the plotting method to have it for a scene. Introduction. We learn how your character is before the problem shows up. Inciting incident. The problem your character needs to deal with shows up. Rising action. With the wrong decision made, we find out how this option plays out. Climax. We found out the character made the wrong decision. We also find out what the right decision was. Falling action. We find out how the right decision ends up playing out and how the character succeeds.